Imagine waking up one morning in 1978 to find a family that has been completely cut off from civilization for 42 years. They know nothing of World War II. They have no idea that humans have landed on the moon. They don't know what plastic is. They have never seen an airplane up close. They have never tasted bread. And all this time, they have survived in one of the harshest environments on Earth, where winter temperatures drop to -50 degrees Celsius. This is not science fiction. This is the true story of the Lykov family, who disappeared into the Siberian Taiga in 1936 and were not discovered until 1978. What they endured, how they survived, and what happened when they finally encountered the modern world will leave you speechless. This is their story. The year is 1936. Soviet Russia under the iron fist of Joseph Stalin. The country is in the grip of brutal political repression. Churches are being destroyed. Believers are arrested, tortured, sent to labor camps, or executed. The communist regime sees religion as an enemy of the state. Among the persecuted are the Old Believers, a traditional sect of Orthodox Christians who broke away from the Russian Orthodox Church in the 17th century. They follow old rituals, old prayers, old customs, and for this, Stalin's government marks them for destruction. Karp Lykov is an old believer, a deeply religious man living in a small village in western Russia. He is a simple peasant, a devoted husband and father of 2 young children. His life is quiet, peaceful, centered on faith and family. Then one day, everything changes. Communist soldiers arrive in his village. They are looking for old believers. Karp watches in horror as they drag his brother from his house, put him against a wall, and shoot him. Right there, in front of everyone. No trial, no mercy, just a bullet and a body. At that moment, Karp makes a decision that will forever change the course of his family's life. He will not wait for the soldiers to come for him. He will not let his children grow up in a world that kills people for praying. He is going to flee. That night, Karp gathers his wife Akulina, their son Savin, who is 9 years old, and their daughter Natalia, who is only 2. They take everything they can carry: a few pots, a handful of seeds, some grain, a spinning wheel, the family's only Bible, and the clothes on their backs. And then, under the cover of darkness, they walk into the forest, heading east, deeper and deeper into the Siberian wilderness, away from civilization, away from Stalin, away from the modern world. They never look back. The Siberian Taiga is one of the most hostile environments on planet Earth. It is a vast boreal forest, covering millions of square kilometers. In the summer, it is a breeding ground for billions of mosquitoes and midges, so thick they can suffocate small animals. In the winter, temperatures drop to -40, -50, sometimes even -60 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes, cold enough to kill. Brown bears roam the forests, so wolves hunt in packs. The terrain is brutal: mountains, rivers, swamps, cliffs. No roads, no cities, no help. Only endless trees and silence. For weeks the Lykov family walks. They follow rivers, climb mountains, push through dense forest. They are looking for a place so remote, so isolated, that no one will ever find them. A place where they can practice their faith in peace, even if it means sacrificing everything else. Finally they find it, deep in the Abakan mountain range, in what is now Khakassia. they discover a small valley. It is surrounded by steep mountains on all sides. A river runs through it. There is a small clearing where they might be able to grow food. It is harsh, isolated, and almost inaccessible. Perfect. They are now 250 kilometers from the nearest human settlement. Using only axes and their bare hands, Karp and Akulina begin to build a shelter. They dig into the side of a mountain, creating what is essentially a burrow, half underground. The walls are made of logs, chinked with moss and mud. The roof is bark and branches covered with earth. There are no windows, no chimney, just a small hole in the roof to let smoke out. The floor is bare earth. Inside, the family will huddle for months in near-total darkness during the brutal Siberian winters. It is cramped, cold, and dark, but it is their home. And here, they are safe from Stalin's soldiers. This primitive hut will be their home for the next 4 decades. Life in the taiga is brutal from day one. The Lykovs have almost nothing. Karp immediately sets about growing food. The growing season in this part of Siberia is incredibly short, maybe 3 months if they're lucky. The soil is poor. Frosts can hit even in summer, but they have no choice. If they don't grow food, they will starve. They plant the seeds they brought with them: rye, potatoes, turnips, hemp for clothing. Every seed is precious. If the crop fails, there is no store to go to, no neighbors to ask. They will have nothing. Akulina spins hemp into thread and weaves it into rough cloth for clothing. She makes shoes from birch bark. She preserves berries and mushrooms for the winter. She does everything by hand, with tools she makes herself from wood and bone. Meanwhile, Karp hunts, but he has no gun. He makes primitive traps and snares from sticks and ropes woven from plant fibers. He catches squirrels, hares, sometimes birds. It's not much, but it keeps them alive. The children, Savin and Natalia, grow up learning these skills. By the time they are 5, they can tell which plants are edible and which are poisonous. By the time they are 10, they can survive in the forest alone if they have to. But survival is not their only goal. Karp is determined that his children will not lose their faith or their culture. Every day he teaches them to read from the family Bible, the only book they have. He teaches them the old prayers, the old rituals, the old customs. He tells them stories of their ancestors, of the faith that has sustained their people for centuries. The children have no concept of the modern world. They don't know what a car is. They have never seen electricity. They don't know what a city looks like. Their entire universe is the forest, the river, and the small patch of land they farm. For a few years, life is hard but stable. And then, disaster strikes. The winter of 1940 arrives with unusual ferocity. Snow falls early. Temperatures drop faster and harder than usual. And then in the spring, a late frost kills their entire crop. Everything, the rye, the potatoes, the turnips, all of it is wiped out. The family stares at the frozen, blackened plants and realizes they are in serious trouble. They have almost no stored food. Winter is coming again, and they are hundreds of kilometers from help. Starvation begins. At first, they try to get by on what little they have. They eat pine nuts, berries, mushrooms. For weeks, they eat things no human should have to eat. They boil the leather from their shoes and belts to make a gelatinous soup. They strip bark from trees and chew it. Karp watches his children grow thin and weak. Akulina, already frail from years of hard labor and poor nutrition, begins to fade. Her body simply cannot survive on bark and leather. Then, in 1942, while Karp is desperately searching for food, Akulina gives birth. She has a son, Dmitri, but childbirth in her weakened, malnourished state is catastrophic. She never recovers. 2 years later, in 1944, Akulina dies. The official cause is starvation, though disease and exhaustion certainly played a role. Karp buries his wife in the forest, near their hut. He marks the grave with a simple wooden cross. He is now alone with 3 children in one of the most isolated places on Earth. Savin is 17. Natalia is 10. Dmitri is only 2. But then, something happens that gives Karp a reason to keep fighting. That same year, in 1944, a daughter is born. Her name is Agafia. Dmitri and Agafia will never know their mother. They will grow up in the Taiga with no memory of the outside world, no concept of modern civilization. They are, in every sense, children of the wild, and Karp, now in his 50s, must raise them alone. Dmitri and Agafia grow up believing they are the only people on Earth. Their father tells them that there was once a world beyond the forest, a world of cities and people and machines. But to them, it is all abstract, like a fairy tale. Their reality is the Taiga. They speak Russian, but it is an archaic dialect, frozen in time from the 1930s. They use words and phrases that have long since disappeared from modern Russian. They sound like people from another century, because in a way, they are. Karp teaches them everything he knows, how to plant and harvest, how to trap animals, how to make tools from wood and bone, how to survive minus 50-degree winters with almost nothing. But he also teaches them to read using the family Bible. Years pass. The children grow into adults. Savin and Natalia, who remember the outside world, help their father farm and hunt. Dmitri, strong and resourceful, becomes an expert hunter and fisherman. Agafia learns to weave, sew, cook, and preserve food. But their diet is terrible. They have no salt, no sugar, no bread. They eat mostly potatoes, turnips, rye porridge, and whatever small animals they can catch. Sometimes they get lucky and trap a deer or a wild boar, but meat is rare. The lack of proper nutrition takes a brutal toll. By the time they are in their 20s, their teeth are rotting and falling out. They suffer from chronic malnutrition. Their bodies are lean and wiry, but constantly on the verge of breakdown. They make clothes from the hemp they grow themselves, spinning and weaving it by hand. It takes months to make a single shirt. They make shoes from birch bark, which wear out quickly and must be constantly replaced. In the winter, they wrap their feet in rags and animal skins to keep from freezing. Their entire existence is an endless cycle of labor. In the spring, they plant. In the summer, they gather and repair. In the fall, they harvest and preserve. In the winter, they huddle inside their dark, freezing hut. They have no concept of holidays, no birthdays, no celebrations other than the religious festivals marked on their old Orthodox calendar. They have no music but their own voices singing hymns. They have no entertainment, no games, nothing but work, prayer, and survival. And yet, they endure. Dmitri, it would later be discovered, becomes one of the toughest human beings anyone has ever met. He can run down wild animals on foot. He can swim in icy rivers. He can work all day in temperatures that would kill most people. Agafia, meanwhile, becomes the family's spiritual anchor. She prays constantly. She memorizes prayers and hymns. She maintains the old traditions with a devotion that borders on obsession. For her, faith is not just a belief. It is the only thing that makes them human. And Karp, now in his 60s and 70s, watches his children grow into adults who have never known anything but the forest. He sometimes wonders if he made the right choice, running away all those years ago. But then he remembers his brother's execution, and he knows he had no choice at all. The years blur. 1950, 1960, 1970. The world outside the forest is changing in ways the Lykovs cannot even imagine. World War II comes and goes. They know nothing of it. The Soviet Union launches Sputnik and sends a man to space. They have never heard of it. Television, computers, antibiotics, jet airplanes, all of this is completely unknown to them. They are living as if time stopped in 1936. And then, one day in 1978, their world comes crashing down. June 1978. A team of Soviet geologists is conducting an aerial survey of a remote region of Caucasia, searching for potential iron ore deposits. They are flying over the endless taiga, a dense forest stretching to the horizon in all directions. Then one of the geologists spots something that shouldn't be there. A clearing, a small one, maybe a quarter of an acre. And in the clearing, what looks like furrows, rows of plants, a garden. There's not supposed to be anyone out here, the pilot says. The helicopter circles lower. They see a crude hut, smoke rising from a hole in the roof, and then movement. A figure emerges from the shadows. The team lands nearby and proceeds on foot. When they arrive, they are confronted with a scene that looks like something out of the Middle Ages. A man stands before them. He is 81 years old, though they don't know it yet. He has a long, wild beard. He is wearing clothes that look like they were made centuries ago. He stares at the geologists in terror. "Who are you?" Karp Lykov asks, his voice trembling. "Have you come to take us?" The geologists try to reassure him. "We mean you no harm. We are scientists." Eventually, Karp calls out. 3 more figures emerge from the forest. Savin, now 51. Natalia, 45. Dmitri, 36, and Agafia, 34. The geologists are stunned. These people are living as if it's the 16th century. One of the geologists asks, "How long have you been here?" Karp has to think. Time is hard to track without a calendar. Finally he says, "We came here when I was a young man. It has been many years." They would later figure out it had been 42 years. The geologists sit down with the family and begin to explain what has happened in the world since 1936. They tell them about World War II, about the death of Stalin, about the moon landing, about modern technology. The Lykovs listen in, stunned, almost uncomprehending silence. Dmitri and Agafia, who were born in the Taiga, have the hardest time grasping it. They have never seen an airplane up close. They have never seen a car. They don't know what plastic is. When one of the geologists offers Agafia a piece of bread wrapped in cellophane, she examines the packaging with wonder. The geologists offer them food, bread, salt, sugar, canned meat. The family is hesitant. They haven't tasted salt in 42 years. They have never eaten refined sugar. Bread is a distant memory for Karp, and a complete mystery to Dmitri and Agafia. Over the next few days, The geologists keep returning. They bring supplies, axes, knives, seeds, cloth. The Lykovs are grateful but wary. They do not want to leave. This is their home. Word of the Lykov family spreads quickly. Soviet newspapers pick up the story. Scientists and journalists make the long, difficult journey to visit them. Their story becomes international news. The government offers to relocate the family. But Karp refuses. "We have lived like this for over 40 years, he says. We survived Stalin. We survived a war we didn't even know was happening. We survived starvation. We are not leaving now." The scientists respect his decision, but they are concerned. The Lykovs' health is terrible. Decades of malnutrition have taken a brutal toll. Their teeth are rotted. They have chronic illnesses. They need medical attention. But there is another problem. Contact with the outside world is dangerous. The Lykovs' immune systems have been isolated for 42 years. They have never been exposed to modern diseases. They have no antibodies to common illnesses that other people carry without symptoms. Even a simple cold could kill them. And tragically, that is exactly what happens. Within a few months of their discovery, the older children begin to fall ill. Savin develops pneumonia. Natalia's kidneys fail. Dmitri, the strongest of them all, contracts a respiratory infection. Doctors try to help, but it's too late. Their bodies, weakened by decades of malnutrition and an isolated life, simply cannot fight off these new diseases. Savin dies in 1981. Natalia dies a few months later. Dmitri, the man who could run down wild animals and swim in frozen rivers, dies in 1982. Karp Lykov, now 91, buries his children one by one in the forest near their hut. He marks each grave with a simple wooden cross, just as he did for his wife decades earlier. Only Agafia is left. Karp dies in 1988 at the age of 91. He never left the Taiga. He lived and died in the forest that was both his prison and his sanctuary. He is buried next to Akulina, the wife he lost 44 years earlier. Today, Agafia Lykova is in her 80s. She still lives in the same remote wilderness where she was born in 1944. She has never left. The Russian government sends her supplies a few times a year by helicopter: flour, salt, seeds, basic tools. Sometimes, volunteers and documentary filmmakers make the long journey to visit her. They bring news, help with repairs, and check on her health. But Agafia prefers to be alone. She tends her garden. She prays for hours every day. The journalists who visit her describe a woman who seems content, despite everything. They have shown her pictures of cities, of technology, of modern life. But none of it appeals to her. The world out there is full of sin. She says, "Here, I am close to God." In a world of smartphones, the internet, artificial intelligence, and space exploration, Agafia Lykova represents something that has almost completely vanished, a life completely disconnected from modernity. She is a living relic of the 1930s, a woman whose entire existence has been shaped by faith, isolation, and survival. The story of the Lykov family is not a story of triumph. It is a story of loss, of suffering, and of unimaginable hardship. They survived for 42 years in conditions that would have killed most people in a matter of days. They endured starvation, brutal cold, complete isolation, and the crushing weight of knowing they might never see another human being again. But survival came at a cost. 3 of Karp's children died shortly after being discovered by the outside world, their bodies unable to cope with the exposure to modern diseases. Karp himself died in the forest, never returning to civilization. Only Agafia remains, an 80-year-old woman living alone in the Siberian wilderness, clinging to a way of life that has vanished from the rest of the world for nearly a century. Her story challenges everything we think we know about survival. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about what we are willing to sacrifice for our beliefs, about what it means to be truly isolated, about what it takes to endure when everything is stripped away. The Lykovs had no technology, they had no medicine, they had no help, they had only faith, family, and a refusal to give up. And somehow, for 42 years, that was enough. Agafia Lykova is still living in the Taiga today. She is a reminder that survival is not always about comfort or convenience. Sometimes it is about faith, endurance, and the simple, stubborn refusal to give up, no matter how dark the world becomes. If this story moved you, if it made you think about survival, faith, and human resilience in a new way, do me a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more incredible true stories of survival and the extraordinary limits of the human spirit. These are the stories that need to be told. The stories that remind us of what we are truly capable of when everything is stripped away. Stories like the Lykovs, who survived the impossible and paid the ultimate price for their freedom. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes survival isn't about winning. It's just about refusing to quit.